Hello again, it's Rick here from the Game Creators. I had a request some weeks ago about shooting more than one bullet. If you remember, we did a simple shooter demo, and I said I would cover this later on. Since we've covered arrays in the last example, we're going to use arrays again in this one. I've really sort of struggled to get this to work today, but like in most programming, if you keep at it and work out what you're doing wrong, then you will succeed, and never give up is the best advice. So as usual, we've got the normal sort of setup commands here, and the first thing I'm going to do is create an array here called bullets, and we want them as floats. Okay, so we're going to create an array of 100 bullets, and in each one of those bullets will have 11 values, quite a lot of values actually, and I've commented here what those 11 values are. Okay, the first number 1 is, I, 1. If it was number 1, because I is just the index, if you like, you've got 100 of these bullets. So we're saying in each of these records, the first field, if you like, is a flag that says, is this bullet live? If it's set to 0, it's not live. If it is 1, then it is live. It means it's going to be flying through the air, this bullet. 0 just means it's not being used, it's just waiting to come into action, into play in the game. 2 and 3 are the X and Y positions of the bullet. 4 is a speed value for the bullet. 5 and 6 are the X and Y destinations of where the bullet's going. 7 and 8 are the distances between where the bullet starts and where it ends. Distance in X and distance in Y. And then 9, value number 9, is the actual distance from the start, from the current position to the end, from A to B. And then 10 and 11 store X and Y movements, sort of like ratio that you have to move in X and in Y to get from where you are to where you're going. So for example, if a bullet was moving just right across the screen, it would move in the X direction one at a time, and it wouldn't have to move in the Y. But obviously if you're moving, say, diagonal down the bottom of the screen, so from top left to bottom right, you would move one position in the X and one position in the Y. So that's what that stores. So we create this bullets as flow 100, 11. I did start it with 100,4, but it built up over time. I've got a variable here called current bullet equals 1. That's just the bullet that we are going to be doing work on. So as bullets get fired, that counts up to the next bullet, and then we fire the next bullet. And then the maximum number of bullets. So that can be changed, and then the program will adapt to that being changed. So the first, after that's set up, the first thing we do is we just set all the bullets. So we go from I, in this for next loop, we go from I equals 1 to max bullets being 100, so 1 to 100. And we set bullets I, 2. Remember 2 is the bullet X position. And bullets I, 3, that's the Y position, to the center of screen. 512 by 384 is half of the resolution, 1024 by 768. So I'm just setting all the bullets at that middle of the screen, and I'm also setting item number 4, if you remember, is the speed to a random. Now I'm using what's called a function. We'll come back to that when we get to the bottom of the screen, but I call my function and it returns a value and puts it into there. So that sets up all the bullets from 1 to max bullets. Then we create sprites for each of the bullets. So we create an image in memory, image number 1, and it's going to be red because the R of the RGB is set to 255, and the transparency is 255 as well, so it's an opaque colour. And then I do another loop for I equals 1 to max bullets, and we create the sprite using image number 1, and we set the sprite to 4x4. We set the sprite position to the bullets array values, which is 2 and 3. If you remember, 2 is the X position and 3 is the Y position. Then we set the sprite to invisible. Okay, so it's turned off, you don't see it. But we know we've now got 100 sprites ready to do some action. Then we come to our do loop routine, and the first thing we do is we check to see if the user has touched or clicked the screen. So if get point press equals 1 and the current bullet is set to 0, remember if we go back up here, bullet live is the first value. So if it's set to 0, then it must be available to us to use, and we can start. So yes, touch event detected, make bullet live. So we set the flag to 1, the first one, so we're saying this bullet is now live. We then set the destination 5 and 6, go back here, 5, destination X and destination Y. We set those to the current X and Y of the mouse pointer or the touch point. We then turn on the current bullet, and then we do some calculations. Okay, it gets a bit heavy here. I'm not going to go into a great amount of detail, but you can explore this in your own time. So what we do is work out the distance between where the bullet is and where the bullet's going. So 7, item 7 becomes the destination X position minus the current X position, and we do the same for the Y. And then from that we work out, using this quite complex formula, the actual distance between the 2 points. We do square root of the X distance times the X distance plus the Y distance times the Y distance. I don't know how that works. I was given that routine, so the better mathematicians out there could tell me, but it works. And from that then we work out some ratios. We work out how much we have to move in the X and how much in the Y, and we put those values in 10 and 11. And then we then increase current bullet because we've set this one off and running, and we just check that we haven't got to the end of all the bullets. If we have, we go back to bullet 1, end if, and then end if again. So that routine basically just will start a bullet moving to where you've touched or clicked on the device. And then we come down to this routine, move all live bullets. So again we use another for next loop. We go from 1 to max bullets, and if the bullet is live, if it equals 1, then we calculate the new X and Y positions by adding the ratio amounts to the X and Y. So we get the X, we say the X of the bullet is the current X of the bullet plus the ratio times the speed. We do that for the Y as well. Okay, and on this line we actually set the sprite position to these new calculations. And finally we need to check to see if the bullet is at the end of a line. Now, because we're using a speed, we can't just assume it's going to be exactly equal. Okay, so if you're moving a sprite 5 pixels at a time, you might jump over the actual end position. So using a bit of cleverness, I've worked it out. So I work out this X difference and this Y difference, and I say, now ABS, that's going to give you an absolute value, because this could actually give you a minus value or a positive value, and it's best to turn it into an absolute value, which is a positive value, so then you can check if it's within range quite easily. And also because these values are floating point, I'm going to use round to get them to the nearest integer. So I had to do that. It took me a bit of working out this, but you can explore this. So what we do is we take the current X and we minus the destination X, and we do the same for the Y. And then we say if X diff is less than or equal to, again, an absolute and rounded off value for the speed, and the same for the Y, then we must be very close to the end of the line. And then we set the bullet to not live, and then we reset its X and Y, and then we call the random function again to reset the speed to a different value. And then we turn off the sprite because we've finished, it's got to the end of a line, and then we end if that. Here's the little function. Okay, so here where we're doing bullets I, 4 equals my random, that will call the function, and the function will do what it does. It says, well, x equals random 1 minus 3, so it picks a random number between 1 and 3, and it returns it back in x, and that x then goes into bullets I, 4. We'll do more on functions in a later tutorial because they're very important and they will make things much easier for you once you get to use them. So that's my demo. It was really to address the point of how do you fire more than one item, but it also shows the benefit of using arrays. But arrays, as you can see, can become difficult to read, and in later tutorials we'll talk about types, and they'll be much easier for you to formulate the data you need to control it within a game. Anyway, let's have a run of this and see how it works. So we've got black screen, and if I just click once, you can see a bullet come out, and another one, and another one, and they're all different speeds, and when they get to the end of their line they disappear. And I can click a lot and it can cope up to 100 of these bullets firing out. Okay, and if we go back to our function down the bottom, if we change this to say 10, 30, we're going to have faster bullets. Say like so. And I'm only changing that one function. They're a bit too fast, so maybe something between 5 and 15 would work best. And there we go. Anyway, the project can be downloaded. See the description for the link, and you can take this and develop it further and hopefully learn from it. Thanks again for watching this tutorial. Please subscribe so you can keep up to date with more tutorials. If there are any other subjects you'd like me to cover, let me know. I've got a list, I'm working through them, and hopefully you'll learn as we go. Bye.